remembering what a college professor once said to me, write what you know. And I thought, this is the most significant thing that's ever happened to me. And I know every detail about it. I know what the doctors are saying. I know what I'm feeling. I know what's going on around me. I know what I'm doing with my child who I can't even lift. I know all of this. So I put it together into a story. And was so healing because it allowed me to see myself in the context of my marriage that was falling apart. And I take my responsibility. Like in writing it, I took responsibility for who I was at that time. That's powerful. I mean, that is really powerful because we all live in these moments of illusion of what happened and the victimization that has occurred to us.
Welcome to Impostrix Podcast Season 4. My name is Whitney and I am your host. Thanks for joining us for this episode. I am excited to jump into it. Impostrix Podcast validates professionals of color navigating imposter experiences and racial toxicity within their careers. And this season, we are focusing exclusively on pouring into Black women. How can we take care of the Black women in our lives? If we are a Black woman, how can we pour into ourselves? How can we receive the pour from others? So this episode is going to be about that and all the episodes within this season. So sit back, get your listening ears on. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Impostrix Podcast. This is Season 4, and we are talking all about how Black women can pour into ourselves. That is our sole focus this season. It makes me happy every time I have a conversation because this is what I need in my life, and I know it's what y'all need too. So I am your host, Whitney Knox Lee. I am here today with Kim Green. I am excited about this conversation where we're going to be talking about how writing can help us heal. And so let me tell you a little bit about Kim. She is passionate about words. Her writing career is prolific and widespread. She has had a storied career in entertainment as a senior copy director at Sony Music Entertainment. She conceived of award-winning corporate campaigns and solidified the voice of Def Jam Records as marketing and advertising. Kim was also responsible for creating memorable corporate campaigns, as well as for artists of all genres, including hip-hop, classical jazz, and R&B. She's also an author, having written 2 books, Hallucination and Vicissitudes, and then 1 nonfiction collection of blogs called Isolation. She has written celebrity biographies, creative nonfiction, short stories, essays, and she was the ghostwriter for Fantasia's book, Life is Not a Fairy Tale. That book went on, as you probably know, to appear in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller lists and was turned into a Lifetime television movie, which is amazing. So what she's going to be talking to us about today is her other business enterprise, this other big part of her, which is focusing on writing as healing. So she has this company called Words LLC, where she serves as copywriter and editor, and then Blank Page Consulting is the company where she is serving as a life coach and as a writing coach. She recently kicked off her retreats called the You Have a Right to Heal Women's Retreat, and it's designed for women of all ages and all walks of life to come together to work on themselves emotionally through writing. Therapeutic writing is a passion for Kim because she has seen writing transform the lives of her clients, and also it's helped her get through her own obstacles. So I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation. Y'all have heard me discuss on other episodes that I do not like writing. So Kim has given me some work to do. We're going to get into that. Before we do, and before we learn more about Kim's story and why writing, Kim, I would love for you to share any other ideas, or not ideas, identities that you are bringing to this conversation.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk with you today. So I remember this idea of my identities, and I thought my identity that I love to put out there is I'm a creative. That's my identity. And so, I am a mother, I'm a spouse, I'm a writer, I'm an author, all those things. But I think most importantly, the way I live into my life is with creativity. And I think that's my identity. I'm a creative.
Mm. Was that something that was always like nurtured as you were growing up? The
Yeah,
creative
pretty
aspect?
much. I had two pretty practical, well, a really practical father, and then a sort of a dreamer, aspirational mother. And so my father was always like, get a job, get benefits, that was his
Yeah.
thing. And so he wanted me to be a lawyer. And so he was so committed. At the time, I wanted to be a dancer. So I was not even anything. And he was like, that's not going to work, which he was right. My father was always right, by the way. And so not to say that being a dancer is an impossible thing, but for me, it was not going to be good because I hurt my foot once in my apartment when I was practicing choreography. And when I sat on the ground with this aching, throbbing foot, I was like, this is not a possible career because if you go down, you're down. So he was right. But my mother was very aspirational, very into the arts, very into beautiful things, aesthetics. I mean, that was her thing. So I kind of combined both of those things. Where I'm practical, I'm always like trying to do new things and creative things, but I also know that I have to, where my bread and butter is really in my writing.
Mm.
So I combine all of that to make a very busy, crazy business.
Yeah. You're describing my family, I think. And I've had conversations, one with Kamal X in season one, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
talking about how we choose to follow our calling
Mm-hmm.
and specifically around creativity and those who are artists or other types of creatives. He is a photographer,
Mm-hmm.
and a black man, of course. And so we were talking about just the pull that we can feel sometimes between doing the thing that we love or the thing that we're interested in versus doing the thing that makes us money because that is what we need to do in this society. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been really cool learning from people how they've managed to do both. And I actually am speaking to several people this season who have found a way to do both and keep their passion thing fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like for you, that is the case as well with your writing.
Yes, absolutely.
That is so why writing? What is it? What is it about writing?
I don't, well, I have to tell you, it started when my father, who passed away in 2008, but I was very, very close to him and everything is about my father. But anyway, he used to ask me to write letters for his correspondence for his business. So here I was, like 13 years old, writing these business letters, right? Now, I'm a young writer. So all I'm doing is like showing off my big words, right? I don't know. I don't understand context. I don't understand nuance. I just know that I have all these beautiful words that I learned in school and I want to like try them out. So I would write these correspondences and they were all like bill collecting correspondences. So he would ask me to write these letters. So I would write these really intense, overachieving letters with these big words. And his customers would be like, some of them would leave him. Like, I'm not going to work with you anymore. This letter is outrageous. Like, I can't believe you said these things to me. Now, this is all me writing for him. So but sometimes some people would be like, oh my God, here's the money. Like, I got the
Yeah.
letter. Here's the money. So he used to just always encourage me. Like, he really encouraged my writing and my ability with words and all of that. So that has always been a part of him, just sort of boosting me, propelling me into that. And then, what really happened is that then my mother died shockingly when I was 15 years old. She died on the New York City subway, which is really crazy. And when that happened, and I found out, and I went to the hospital, I was by myself. I was 15 years old. They called me at home, and I took a neighbor with me, another neighbor who had a 15-year-old daughter, and she came with me together. It was just shocking. But anyway, when that happened, and I came home, and life began after that. I just didn't really know because my parents were divorced. So my mother and I lived together, and so she was gone. And so what my father came and moved in and all that. But I didn't really know how to deal with it. I mean, I just didn't have any idea. I was just like, what? I don't even know where I'm dead myself. Like it's it's over. I don't even know what to do with this. And the only thing I could come up with is to start writing. So my father used to have these legal pads in our house, and I would just grab one off the shelf and just start writing how I felt. Anger, rage, sadness, hopelessness, helplessness. I mean, I just had all of these feelings, and I would write and write and write and write. I did that for months and months and months. And it really, like, when I did it, I realized when I got to the other side of it that I could like handle it. Like I'm still alive. Like I thought I was
Wow.
dead. But now I'm here. I still have to go to school. I still have to figure it out. College is coming. I've got things to do. So I think that that experience has just been so powerful for me, and it just has guided me through the whole thing. And then years later, as an adult, I was married, and then I got a divorce. And in the middle of that, I got diagnosed with lupus.
Mm.
And my ex husband was like, I didn't sign up for this. That is a classic line in my book, actually. Um, that he said, I did not sign up for this. The sickness, I can't go, can't do it.
Right.
And so there I was with our newly adopted child, who I was so weak I couldn't even lift him. And, he was gone. So I remember being diagnosed and meeting a lot of people. And people would say to me, what are you doing during the day? How are you handling it? And I would say, oh, I don't know. I'm just crying and preparing to die. And, I'm down. And somebody said, I can't remember who it was, which is so sad because this person has propelled me into new heights. But they said to me, why don't you write something? And I said, oh, that's might be a good idea, instead of lamenting all day. So I started writing a novel about what was happening in my life at the moment. So I call it a novelized memoir.
Mm.
And so I just started writing my situation and just wrote this book called Hallucination. And it was such a healing thing. It took a long time. It wasn't written just in a couple years. It took me like 9 years to write it. But I was just working on remembering what a college professor once said to me, write what you know. And I thought, this is the most significant thing that's ever happened to me. And I know every detail about it. I know what the doctors are saying. I know what I'm feeling. I know what's going on around me. I know what I'm doing with my child who I can't even lift. I know all of this. So I put it together into a story. And was so healing because it allowed me to see myself in the context of my marriage that was falling apart. And I take my responsibility. Like in writing it, I took responsibility for who I was at that time. That's powerful. I mean, that is really powerful because we all live in these moments of illusion of what happened and the victimization that has occurred to us.
So let's pause a minute and just get real. You do everything for everybody. But have you taken a moment to care for future you? Getting your affairs in order isn't just about wills or trusts. It's about peace of mind for you and love for those that you leave behind. Ideally, we should all have an estate plan. And if you're in Georgia, Wills for the People can help you out. But if you're not ready yet to create your will or trust, there's something that you can do that will go a long way in helping the future you. And that is to get organized. The I Plan for This Life Organizer for When It's Needed is a workbook designed to help you organize your life with clarity and ease, making it so that if someone needs to care for you or for your affairs because you're not able to, they have all of the information that they need. No stress, no confusion, just a record made by you, about you. Visit willsforthepeoplega.com to get your copy, because you deserve to be prepared and to have your loved ones prepared. Again, that's willsforthepeoplega.com and click on the workbook tab. Back to the show.
And I knew I couldn't continue a life feeling mad and bad and blaming. Like I knew that was not going to be feasible. So I really think that it was just such a beautiful experience and experiment. And I always knew that I wanted that for women, especially Black women, for them to just get to the heart of what's going on with them.
And were you, before this major thing happened in your life and you find yourself in just a completely different situation than you were the week before, maybe, were you still writing between having to process your mother's passing and now this situation in adulthood? Or was it kind of like a returning to writing?
Yeah, I was a journaler. I was one of those people with like my little diary with the lock. I did that for
yeah.
The lock is very important, so I did that. And then I got busy, just being, and then I also was writing so much for other people, for my clients, for the books, blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't writing like on a daily basis, but I always knew that it was there. And so if something big happened to me, or I had a big emotion, or I met a cute guy, or whatever it was, I would go there and write. So I always used it. I always knew it was there. There was always a journal somewhere for me to go to.
As you were telling this your experience, it reminded me of a couple of things. The first, and this isn't going to be linear. The first, though, was you talked about being able to reflect back on who you are and how you showed up, like in that marriage is just the example that you used. And taking responsibility for your part. And for me, when I was in middle school and high school, I journaled. My story involves my journals being read. And so at some point, I stopped journaling because that was no longer, it wasn't helpful, but it also wasn't safe. It wasn't private. And so there was no reason really for me to journal. But my entire life, I'm 37 now. And for a good 20 years, I had a story in my mind about something that had happened with the relationship in high school. My high school sweetheart, who I shouldn't even call it sweetheart because we weren't even together like that. The crush, my high school crush, who like the one that I never got type of thing. I had this story in my head about how basically he dissed me and took this other girl to prom and blah, blah, blah. And I'm been carrying the hurt from him because we were close. We were best friends and tried to date and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I carried the hurt from that for like 20 years, telling myself, I'm never going to let myself be hurt by another man. Recently, within the past couple of years, I went back and I read that journal, the journal that I had at that time. I don't know what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for this. But I read about all of the like horrible, awful things that I was doing, not only in that relationship, but like just to people around me. Like I was, 16, 17 years old. I really wasn't so concerned about this particular person other than that he was a good friend and, I liked him, but I didn't know what it meant to be like trustworthy or honest.
Yes. Trustworthiness is something that you gain. You don't have it in the beginning. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Right. And so what wound up happening is I was going through a lot in my life at that point, and my best friend was like, okay, you need a friend right now. You don't need a boyfriend. And I'm not really sure how to support you. So I think we should take a step back. I want to continue to support you as a friend, blah, 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 blah. Somebody asked him to go to this dance. So he went to this dance. He didn't want to go to this dance. And I knew all of that,
Mm-hmm.
but like completely blocked it out for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And had this resentment and all of this stuff. Um, and now I was able to look back and read that and be like, he didn't diss me. Like, he
Right.
didn't. I had told myself that he didn't even break up with me. Like, the story that I told myself was
Yes.
one day I was dating him. The next day he was taking somebody to this dance and it wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so hurt. But that is not at all what happened. It's not what happened. And
Right.
just the
Yeah.
thought of how much of my life I spent living with that hurt, that, yeah, I was hurt that he broke up with me, whether or not it was for, altruistic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't what I thought it was. And so
Mm-hmm.
just you're sharing about the aspect of writing that allows us to reflect on ourselves, our part,
Mm-hmm.
our actions, how we showed up, um, has been really helpful. That is something that I'll give you. I'll give you that about writing.
Thank you, and I will take it.
The other thing that I was thinking about as you were talking about writing, and like journaling as opposed to maybe writing the novel, um, and where you were at various points in your life where you are doing writing for other people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was that I think for me, journaling feels like work.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, ugh, I have to go journal.
Mm-hmm.
Not like ooh,
A
this thing is
place.
happening. Let me go get it out. Let me go
Right.
journal.
Mm-hmm.
And for listeners, Kim and I had we had our pre-recording conversation and we talked about journaling. We talked about her retreat, and I'll let her talk about that in a little bit. But we talked about the aspect of writing that can help with healing. And I was
Mm-hmm.
sharing with her, my trauma of having had somebody read my journal that led to somebody being arrested and imprisoned
Mm-hmm.
because I was journaling about basically dangerous, stuff that was
Mm-hmm.
happening
Mm-hmm.
around me. And as a result, I stopped journaling really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so Kim challenged me with this writing prompt because, I want to be actually trying some of these tools that all
Mm-hmm.
my guests are giving me. And the prompt was around trying to understand what my relationship with writing is, what I don't like about writing, or what it means for me to write. And as I was writing on that, and you said something else around like, can you see it as what it is, which is just putting down, your feelings, putting down what you're experiencing, like on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And as I was reflecting on it, that's what came up for me was that
Mm-hmm.
this just feels like work. It's
Mm-hmm.
not even so much fear of somebody else reading it. It's
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to take the time to do it because it feels like a chore that I
Mm-hmm.
have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gone through periods where that has been the case with your writing, and how have you gotten through that?
No, I've never had that feeling that it's a chore. I mean, obviously, when you are a writer professionally, writing your own stuff is, at the end of the day, it's a little much. Um, but I think that in general, I mean, it never feels like a chore. It's like a release, it's a place to go, it's like a trip, it's a vacation. And I think we all tell ourselves these stories, and just like the story of you and your male friend who did not diss you, and you had decided that for 20 years. I mean, we all do this. This is what we do. So, especially something like writing. I mean, how many people come to the retreat and say, I'm not a writer. I don't believe in this. I'm happy to be here, but I don't know. And it's a story. It's a story that we've been told. And I think that it's just letting us try it, experience it, and be able to delve deep into the thing that's bothering you. I mean, I think that is the power of it. And you just have to like surrender. Like, okay, this is a chore. Now I'm going to talk about this horrible thing that happened to me today. and just like got to jump over it for a minute and then get going. But once you start writing, I think it usually is a pretty fluid experience. And I watched my writers at the retreat, and they would sort of start, like, well, I don't know what to do. And then you can't stop them. I mean, they're just, you get going because you just, everybody wants to have a conversation with themselves. Everybody wants to like feel things a little deeper than we do in conversation or talking to friends, or because when we talk to friends, we frame it. You start with, what he did to me, let me start there, and then it becomes this monster. So I think when you're writing and it's just you and the words and the page, you don't have the time to like make this big framework. This is how he dissed me, blah, blah, and to work into that and talk into that. You just have to talk about, I feel lonely, or I'm mad that he didn't take me. I should have been there, and then you think, well, should have been there. And why wasn't I there? And as you said, you go back into your journals and you see, I did some horrible things. So it's so powerful to like find yourself there
Yeah.
on
And
that page.
it's so funny because that's exactly what it was. It was me going back, reading this journal, and it's, day after day after day, or maybe skip a couple days, maybe skip a week.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm writing what the context is around what has happened. I'm writing that, like, on this day, I talked to him and I told him that I lied to him about this one thing. I don't understand why he never gets mad at me, but he's not mad at me. He's such a good friend, blah, 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 blah. And then on the next day, I did this, and I don't know if I should tell him about it. And then, like, 2 weeks down the road, it's
Mm-hmm.
Alec told me, or I shouldn't say his name. Well, he knows who he is. He told me that because now I told him,
Right.
is the other thing. So he's in my life now. And I told him, I was like, for the longest time, this is my remembrance of what happened. But recently I went through my journal and I realized that, like, I actually owe you an amends for all sorts of stuff. And I see that what happened, what you did, the pulling away, was self-preservation for you. But it was also to help uncomplicate my life a little bit.
Yes. Yes.
Because so much of what I was writing as I read back on it was about the conflict I was experiencing between wanting to be this person for him versus wanting to go explore my sexuality, explore my sports, explore the things that I like to do, travel, like, and even at that young little high school age where, what real problems do we got? For me, these were all big identity problems. And so, yeah. And when I tell the story, it is very much I had this high school boyfriend and he didn't even take me to a dance. And next thing I know, we're not together anymore. And he was supposed to be my best friend, So I do find that, very interesting. And then the second thing is, when I was writing about writing, I did realize it got easier. It got easier.
Yes.
For me to, like, once I was in it and once I was doing the reflection on the why about writing, it was easy. The hardest part was actually committing to write and then, like, sitting down and doing it. Because I've got all sorts of journals all over the place that have like 2 pages of writing in it.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say about like my experience working on hallucination is that, so I created a character. So her name in hallucination is Morgan. So it's really what Morgan was up to. So that distanced me again further so I could talk about Morgan and her husband. And I could see that Morgan was not making meals and not helping and, not being a wife. Morgan was too busy with her career and working on her success, all of these things. So Morgan had some selfishness in her. So for me, it's easier for me to see that about Morgan, which is me, but it was easier for me to put that on her. So I didn't feel ashamed of it because it was a character. So that's another wonderful way for people to look at their lives. And if they're in some kind of a writing experience, um, it's so great to create characters that you are dictating them. So you tell the truth in your characters. It's easier to do that than tell it about yourself. But when you look at it, boy, it's amazing and it's really a powerful experience.
Yeah. I wanted to share with listeners the prompt that you gave me, so that they know what, excuse me, what I was writing about. So it says, I suggest that you write about exploring writing as a tool for healing. Perhaps start with something that matters to you, and in your writing, question if writing could help and why it may not. Examine the issue, and in that process, you'll be revealing things that you hadn't looked at. Your own
Hmm.
resistance to sharing it fully based on past trauma with being read, and the process of trying to get it on paper despite what happened in the past. Understand it to be what it is, a safe place.
Mm.
And even just, what you just shared, of course, you were talking about writing this novel,
Hmm.
but writing it kind of outside of yourself because you've created a character that is not you.
Hmm.
Um, for me, when I think about safety in a safe place, I'm thinking about using that type of strategy,
Hmm.
um, removing maybe myself a little bit
Hmm.
from it, because I think maybe the other thing is I do process. I process externally. I process
Hmm.
with a therapist. I process with friends. I process with my husband. But as we discussed, I'm also framing everything. It's from,
Hmm.
this perspective. Um, and of course, I'm very invested in what I'm saying because
Right.
I don't
Very
want,
invested.
right. I
Sure.
don't want it to be Whitney is the bad person and made bad decisions.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm human and I make bad decisions sometimes,
Sure.
frankly. Um, but I'm just thinking about other ways to make writing feel safer when it doesn't feel so safe, or even when it feels scary. Because, like
Hmm.
I said, it's not so much for me right now a fear of somebody picking up a journal and reading it.
Hmm.
I think maybe more so it's a fear of that reflection of
Sure.
myself.
That's the fear. That is what it
Mm-hmm.
is, actually. And if you were, I mean, I think when I'm thinking about people listening to this and sort of thinking, oh, maybe I should try it. I mean, what do authors do? A lot of authors use a fake name, for
Mm.
example, right? And then they have freedom. They open the gates and they're free to write because they can take away their own fears or insecurities of what people will think of them, and they're just allowing people to see these behaviors that are all human, by the way, they're all human. Nobody is going to, and I always say when I work with clients and I have memoir clients, and what we do is every week that we meet, I ask them to tell me the secret of the week. And you asked me about the scientific ideas about writing to heal, and I actually have some scientific stuff here. But I think what's so interesting about writing to heal, it's all about secrets. That's the problem. That's the physical thing that holds us down, makes us have bad stomachs. It makes us have more perspiration. It's really true when we hold on to things inside of us, it really manifests physically. So if a person is thinking about this or they have a horrible story that they want to tell, I say give that person a name. If your name is Mary, make her Tamisha and get going and let Tamisha go through all those things, right? Don't get involved. Let Tamisha do it and tell it like it is, because she can tell it like it is instead of you holding on to some parts of it. Oh, this is a little too much. People will be upset about that. I can't really tell about that. Let your character do it. And in watching her do it, you find yourself in that. And it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
So there's all, so I'm actually doing a fiction critique group, and I'm working with people who want to write fiction. And, I always say fiction is completely your life. Your stories, your characters, they all have something to do with what you've experienced, what you've
Mm,
felt, what you've seen, what you've witnessed. So I think there's so much in the writing world, and the therapeutic writing is so fun for me because there's no rules. So you can't write something bad, right? There's
yeah.
nothing I'm going to look at and say, well, that paragraph is not that great, or that sentence is not that great. It's really not for the for critical purposes. It's for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes it kind of liberating, because you don't have people saying, "Oh, I don't want you to read it because you're going to say it's bad." I am so thrilled whatever you write, because it's for you. It's work for you.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about the science part of it, but before I
Hmm.
do,
Sure.
what you just said is so exciting to me, and it's the first
Hmm.
time that I think I felt excitement
Oh
about
boy.
this topic of writing
Hmm.
in quite a while. And it's because I have a very storied past,
Hmm.
not in the best way,
Hmm.
and not because of anybody else but me. I've
Right.
got my own stuff going on. I've got mental health. I've got addiction, and that all started very young for me. And
Hmm.
so, whenever I would get in these situations with my friend group, with my sister circles, or with other people, and I start sharing about myself, they're
Hmm.
always like, "You are a completely different person." Like, I don't even know who that person is that you were talking about, but I am really interested to hear your story. But for me, it's been the secrets.
Yes.
Like, yes, I've told you guys like some parts about it and some parts that are sad, but mostly these are all like juicy parts.
Hmm.
I didn't
Hmm.
tell you about the parts where I'm laying on the floor crying in my room because I feel so horrible about myself and what I've
Hmm.
done.
Hmm.
Um and I have toyed around. I thought about like writing a book, but it's kind of just like, one, who would want to read it? Two, why? Like, why write this book? And hearing you talk about, though, putting a character to it.
Hmm.
So I've been going to therapy for years, right? Years and years, decades. We'll say decades.
Hmm.
Um, Looking for this quote healing. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it feels like, but I know that it has to do with my past.
Hmm.
And with this experience with Alec, the high school person, and realizing how different
Hmm.
my like the things how my brain has made stories of things,
Hmm.
um, really makes me question, some of the other stories that I have in my head about what's happened, about how I've shown up, and it makes me curious again, and maybe excited about taking the suggestion
Hmm.
of writing, not necessarily journaling, but writing to write my story,
Hmm.
but as somebody else, like somebody else being the character, so that then
Yes.
I don't have to be so filled with shame for the
Yeah.
parts that are going to
Correct.
make me feel shame, or
That's
filled
right.
with guilt for the parts that are going to make me feel guilt.
Hmm.
And I can just be like, I'm very logical. I'm an attorney, obviously. So I'm like, this is or it's not. I'm very
Hmm.
practical. And so being able to look at things and just say, oh, yeah, that was a bad decision.
Hmm.
Next. Be
Hmm.
like, oh, yeah, that I hurt people. Next.
Yep.
That does feel like a way of release that I
Yes,
don't
it's
think
it's effective.
that I don't think that I maybe had put, in all the years that I've thought about writing a memoir. It was
Hmm.
never about release. It was always about, I have an interesting past.
Hmm.
People might be interested. Or there might be women who experienced this or are experiencing this and are feeling alone. My
Hmm.
trauma, for example, I've had a lot of guilt around my trauma because I don't really feel all that traumatized by it.
Hmm.
But I know that I should feel
Hmm.
traumatized by it.
Hmm.
So, like, I have a lot of complex emotions that I'm like, well, if I write about it, maybe there's got to be somebody else in this world
Mm-hmm.
feeling similarly, and maybe they'll read it and make them feel better. But it's never been about my own release.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's just that's an exciting idea.
And I tell every client that I work with, we always talk about, what is your intention for the book? But there's two intentions. What do you want your readers to come away with? But most importantly, what do you want to come away with? Like, how is it going to impact you? Because the writing is such a personal thing, and it's so about your own transformation. It's not necessarily for other people. Now, in the action of doing it and delivering it and putting on the page, you are doing good work. But it's this journey that you're on to look at it and look at it again. And, having a coach is so powerful because you get to say, you hand it in and then I get to question it. And so there's certain things that I will say, that's not feasible. Or you're not telling the whole thing.
Mm.
So you wrote something and I appreciate it, but go back, look at it again. Because I feel like there's some things that are missing, things that you're not telling, not being honest about. And I think that that experience, so this working with a coach is very intense because it's not, I don't want people to just, pay me to read it. That is not, as a coach, my job is to, transform, make change for you. So we really work in your story and we just unravel all of the knots. And I think that that is sort of a different thing that people don't understand about having a coach, and that it's such a very valuable thing to do for yourself to get your story right. You have to get it right. This is your last chance, on the page.
Mm. Mm. So let's talk about the science. I'm interested in what the science is saying about writing for healing.
Well, I will say that, so they did an experiment with college students. So they had two groups, and they said, one group, you can write about the most horrible things that have ever happened to you. Like, just take one horrible thing and just take this 20 minutes and write about it. And then they have another group and they say, just write about like nothing. Like, talk about going to the grocery store, what you bought today. So they have these two groups, and the ones who did the writing, the powerful writing to heal, they showed a lot of emotions when they were writing. They would come out crying. They would go through all these things. But when they did the bigger look at the whole situation, they found that the people who wrote about their trauma had less visits to the medical center on campus. I have it here because it's really unbelievable.
Wow.
So it said long-term drops in visits to the student health center for illnesses. Those who wrote about emotional upheavals had half the number of illnesses related visits to the health center in 6 months after the study than people in the control condition, the people who were writing about going to the supermarket. They had immediate increases in feelings of sadness and anxiety after writing.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds a little scary, but students likened it to the feelings that they had after watching a sad movie. Writing about emotional topics does not produce some kind of immediate release or euphoria. So it makes you linger in this
Yeah.
experience. You have to really get in it. Also, they had a greater sense of value and meaning as a result of writing. Not only did people express this in questionnaires afterward, but students would sometimes stop Jamie, one of the people who were doing the study, on campus and thank him for letting him be a part of the experiment.
Oh.
So that's a really amazing piece of it. And the other thing that I wanted to just tell you, there's sort of 5 important pieces of writing to heal. Keeping secrets is physical work. When we try to keep a secret, we must actively hold back or inhibit our thoughts, our feelings, or behaviors. Keeping secrets from others means that we must consciously restrain, hold back, or in some way exert effort to not think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a person who's had abuse, for example,
Mm-hmm.
And I know this from my life experience. You see physical things. You meet people who I had a client who has she's the most gorgeous, beautiful woman, but she has a profuse sweating thing. She
Mm-hmm.
sweats all the time, and she went through. She'd done a lot of therapy. She came to the retreat, but all of this sweating is starting to dry up a little bit because she's sort of talking about the things that are in her heart, the things that are she's feeling. On the second one, secrets can produce short-term biological changes and influence long-term health. So people, and when I was going through my lupus thing, I went to meet a lot of doctors, and I went to a holistic doctor first, and he's the first thing he asked me, what were the immediate shocks to your system? My mother's death, 15 years old.
Mm.
That was my
Yeah.
first shock.
Yeah.
My second shock was my husband leaving me when I was sick. So those are the two things that culminated this cellular rebellion, which is when my body just went into crisis mode. So these things really, like emotions, are completely related to our healing. It's very, very powerful. The other thing was secrets hurt our thinking abilities. So we have a little bit of brain fog. Remember, and a lot of people who have traumatized have bad memories. Can't remember. Can't remember
Mm-mm.
what happened. That is because secrets hurt our thinking abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Disclosures reduce the effects of secrets. So if you have these secrets,
Okay.
but you talk about it, the act of disclosing a trauma reduces the physiological work of secrets. During disclosure, the biological stress of holding back is immediately reduced. Over time, if we continue to confront and thereby resolve our emotional upheavals, there will be a lowering of our overall stress. That's important. And then disclosures forces a rethinking of the events, which is my favorite part. Disclosing or confronting a trauma helps us understand and ultimately assimilate the event. By talking or writing about a secret experience, we are translating the event into language. Once it's language based, we can better understand the experience and ultimately put it behind us. So when it's like a thing, it's no longer you, right? The
Yeah.
rape is not you,
Right.
right? The rape is a thing that happened to you, but you are not the rape. You are not the shame. You are not all of the terrible things that come with rape. It's a thing that happened. But when you put it on the page, it becomes an event and it's no longer you. And that is what we're always trying to do when we're writing to heal, trying to distance ourselves from the things that traumatize us.
See, and I relate to each of those 5 points
Mm-hmm.
that you talked about relating to secret.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a time in my life, a several year time period, where I literally just led double lives.
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole life that, some people were a part of, and then a whole other life that other people were a part of. And those two people, there's maybe three people in my universe who overlapped in
Yes.
my
Right.
double lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a hard period. I mean, it was
It's
trying.
stressful.
Yeah.
It's stressful holding on to two sides.
Yes.
It's hard enough being one person.
Yes, absolutely. And in
Right.
adulthood, one of the things that I am most living in gratitude around is the wholeness of myself.
Mm-hmm.
That all aspects of myself are contained within the one life that I lead.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that it's not a bunch of different lives. Like if I
Right.
have friends in one area of my life, like professional friends, then I'm totally happy having them meet my personal friends. Like
Right.
they don't need to stay separate.
Yes.
Um, I don't need to, have multiple birthday parties because I don't
Yes.
want these separate parts of my life to interact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and that has been something that is I'm really grateful for because it allows me to feel like my life is full instead
Mm-hmm.
of lonely, frankly.
Yes. Right. And whole,
Mhm.
unification of all the pieces of you. is a beautiful thing. I mean, to go into the birthday party with all types of people there, that's your life. That's the
Mm-hmm.
work you've done to be human. You brought all these different things into your life, and everybody should know each other. And I think that that is a great step forward into your unification. And that's the work that you can get from writing, like just sort
Mm.
of unifying all the pieces of yourself.
Yeah. So I don't know if this will be such a smooth segue, but I'm
Hmm.
thinking about blackness
Okay.
and about black women and the role of writing specifically for black women. And
Hmm.
the reason why I'm thinking about it now is because of the conversation of secrets
Hmm.
and the impact that secrets have, and how as a black woman, I'll speak for myself, the code switching
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
the assimilation and the fear, or the fear of rejection or actual rejection,
Hmm.
because of being in our fullness,
Hmm.
being in our wholeness. And I think, many of us hopefully experience a point in our lives where we don't have to be two different people,
Hmm.
um, relating to maybe how we show up with our family versus how we show up at work.
Hmm.
Like maybe I don't use as much slang at work, but I'm still me.
Hmm.
But it just makes me think about the fracturing that happens within our identities, and the way that we carry
Hmm.
the stress
Hmm.
of needing to mute some of
Hmm.
ourselves,
Hmm.
of needing to keep certain aspects of our family away from our fancy cush job, maybe because we have
Hmm.
some fear or embarrassment or shame around our family. Maybe we grew up in a different class than we
Hmm.
are now in,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that we now, socialize in. And so I'm wondering, with relation to Black women, why is writing important for us?
Well, you know, this reminds me of what I was telling you about my father and the writing. So, I've so many things and thoughts about that. First of all, the fracturing and also the rejection. So, as a person who grew up in New York, my mother, as I told you, is the aspirational one. So she was like, you must go to private school, all of this stuff, right? My father was like, oh God, here we go. Right. So they put me in private school, $1 million, all this.
Mm-hmm.
But that was from kindergarten, right? So my entire life was with privileged white people. That was my
Mm-hmm.
world. In the summers, I was sent to the projects of Cincinnati to be with my black family. Talk about rejection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, my greatest rejection experiences have been from Black people who were very negative to me about the way I spoke and the way I this and that and this. And it was very much like when I was younger, they would say, there was obviously music was the most important thing, and it's the most important thing to me now. But the music is my way in. That's how I got in because they were at first they were like, you can't dance. And of course I couldn't because I went to school with all these white girls. So of course I couldn't. But I loved music and I felt it in my body. Like I knew what I felt. So I would start to dance with my family. And then it was just like, oh my God, that this unification occurred. I am both things. I read 100 books in the summer. I'm a geek in that way. I love to learn. I'm intellectual, all that. But I am in this music thing. It's a huge piece of me. So that does happen. But to answer the big question, and I'm sorry that I went off there, um, but I think it's so important for Black women because it's the only safe place. So it's where you can write. You could write in slang. You know what I mean? You could write the real way that you talk and think. You also can forgive yourself for all the things that show up for us, which is sometimes the indictment is I'm too bougie, I'm too
Mm-hmm.
materialistic. Um, my people that I grew up with don't recognize me anymore. So there's all these parts of us just in the blackness that divide us, especially when we aspire to do something else. But we need to put that on paper so that we can be whole and not angry.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I know that I've walked away now with this new idea around what writing a book could mean for me
Hmm.
as far as my healing process. Um, and so I'm really grateful for you for that gift.
Well, I thank you so much. And I quickly want to just tell you about my retreat, if you will let me
Please
do
do,
that.
yes.
So the You Have the Right to Heal retreat takes place in October 16th to the 20th in Tucson, Arizona. It is going to be fantastic this year. We did it last year, and this is going to be the second one. And it's 14 people. It's only 14 people. It's a very, very intimate retreat. And we spend 5 days together writing and doing a lot of non-invasive healing modalities, including yoga, breath work, um, massage, meditation, sound healing. We're going to have acupuncture this year, whichever people really wanted that. All the meals are included. The massage is included. It's like you get a lot of different things. And you do a lot of writing to heal with me. I lead these sessions, and there's also a therapist on hand. So people
Good.
can have a therapy session. So it's just a wonderful experience. And this last year, we had 14 people. That group of women have now become dear friends, and they live all over the country. And they have a group chat. They support each other. They talk to each other. They share their secrets. They've shared their secrets with the group. And now we have, if you're one a participant, you now have 13 people who know your secret, and they're going to support you in it. So people are calling each other, what's going on with the husband? What's going on with leaving him or getting back together with him? Or, I mean, it just was such a magical experience. And I just recommend it for women of all. And also there were black women, there were white women, there were all kinds of women. And there were women who talked about being black. One woman was Palestinian. She talked about that. And it was such a moment of understanding because it's all women. We all have the same stuff. My goodness. There was a woman, and I always say this, blonde, perfect blue eyes, alcoholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholic, told us all of it, the shame of it, the pain of it. But now she's sober. But it was just life changing to see women come together on this high level. So if anybody is interested in the You Have the Right to Heal retreat, please look at my website, blankpageconsult.com. And there's a lot of information about 2024 and what's going on for 2025. And we are very excited about it, but it's also just a very, very powerful and enriching experience. And I would love anybody who hears this to check it out and talk to me if they want to. They can always reach me on my website. We can talk. There's a way that you can schedule a call. I'm there for all that. But it's just my service to Black women. I just feel so strongly about it.
Wow. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So I will make sure that listeners have all the ways to contact you. And then
Okay.
if you are a subscriber to the Validating Voice newsletter, which is our periodic newsletter, you
Hmm.
will also get, I'll include in a newsletter information about your Right to Heal
Okay.
retreat and how to reach him.
Wonderful.
Because
Thank
yeah,
you.
that sounds like just an amazing experience. Well, thank you, Kim, for joining us today.
Thank you, Whitney. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. And you and I will talk more because I want you to write. And I got you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Impostrix Podcast. I hope that you got what you needed. If you're ready for more, feel free to go through the other 3 seasons worth of amazing episodes that we've put together for you. I want to hear from you. I want to know how you related to this episode. So if you're listening on Spotify, feel free to answer the question or send a text. You can do that through your Spotify app. If you're listening elsewhere, make sure that you follow me on Instagram at Impostrix Podcast. And if you like to text, go ahead, go to the show notes, look for the link for the WhatsApp community, because we just got it started this season for season 4, and I love to chat, so hit me up. Also, thank you to Chris at Digital REM for editing this episode. Until next time, be validated.
Because I remember growing up, and my big famous story that I tell a lot which is when I got cursed out by a 16-year-old girl. It was my fault. And I'll quickly tell you because you'll think this is really funny and people love this story. So because I was trying to fit in, right? I mean, I'm from New York. I don't know anything. Don't know how to braid hair. I don't know any of that, right? So I come to the Cincinnati summer, and my cousins were like, we're going to send you to camp. You're going to go to summer camp with the YMCA, right? Or the Big Brothers or whatever, right? So it's free,
Yes.
right? So here I go. So
I know where this is going.
I go to camp, and don't fit in. Everybody's looking at me. I look funny. I talk funny. I'm just no good, right? I'm no good at the camp. So they were having a fashion show. So they say, who wants to help with the models? So, okay, I don't really raise my hand. And then at one point they say, who can braid hair? I need somebody to braid hair. And I don't know who I was. I don't know what came over me, but I raised my hand with such fervor. I can braid hair. And the girl says to me, all right, be here at 2:00. You got Molly, you're going to do her hair, and we're going to do it. So I go, and the girl comes out, and she's got this beautiful hair. It's in these 2 big braids. And so I needed to redo it. So as I was unraveling, the hair became Diana Ross. It was growing and expanding all over town. I mean, it was outlandish, the hair. It was just so much hair. I had no idea what to do with it. Nothing. So I just stood there like rubbing it. Honestly, I just didn't know what to do. Rubbing it and like patting it and like twirling it and twisting it. And
Folding it over.
I was folding it. I was doing everything I could. And after like 45 minutes, nothing's happening to this hair. It's still Diana Ross, and it's just a lot of folding. This little 16-year-old girl comes up to me, and she cursed me out like I've never been cursed out. I was young. I've never been cursed out, right? I'm a young girl. She called me all kind of bitches. I mean, she called me everything she could call me. I will tell you, that was one of the most traumatic things that ever happened to me. And when I look at it, I'm so amazed by the fact that I told such a big lie that I can braid hair. But this is what we do to fit in. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be like everybody else for once. Because in New York, and I'm the only Black girl in the room, I was like, this is my people, but I don't have any of the tools I need to be here. And it's just one of my favorite stories, but I think it's so much about what we do go through in our dichotomy of self, And those are the kinds of things that need to be on paper. Because when we tell these shameful stories, we see, because we all have them. We all have them. Some could be the other way, when you're doing something embarrassing in front of white people and you're down because you don't have the tools that they have to deal in that space. So it's the same, but this dichotomy of ourself is what we're fighting all the time as Black women. And we have to write that down to get it out of our bodies. These terrible secrets. These are secrets. This hair braiding story, I never told it for many, many years. And then when I became into this writing world, I tell it all the time because it's such a truth of who it is to be a Black woman of all classes and
Mm-hmm.
statuses. It just trying to fit in, trying to be, and we got to stop trying and just be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I should have been able to be like, I don't know how to braid hair.
Right, right.
So all I can do is help with the put the clothes on the girls. I can do that. Because I dress myself every morning, so I think I can
Right,
do
I
that.
can do this. It's hilarious that like of all the lies, like that one, because then you got to actually go do it.
What was I thinking? What was I even thinking?
I
Crazy.
don't know. That's what. Do you know how to braid hair now?
I do. I
Nice.
do. I
Nice.
do.
I used to always beg my sister if I could practice braiding her hair. So I can braid like my own hair, but I can't braid anybody else's hair. And I blame
Okay.
that on my sister because she wouldn't let me practice.